And so it's actually making innovation just part of the DNA of Lincoln and making it part of the DNA from all of our undergraduate students. So everyone, when they come out of here, can think in an innovative way. They think in a farmer-centric way and go, okay, how do we solve these problems? How they learn those basic competencies, which are going to become a critical requirement of every graduate. Whether you become an entrepreneur and start your own business or not, you need to have this way of thinking. And so we've got to build those sensibilities and capabilities into our students. And so don't leave it to the end, do it at the start.
Welcome to another episode of the From the Soil Up podcast. This week's episode is slightly different, where we're going to be interviewing multiple people. The focus of this is the innovation project at Lincoln University. We're going to be first off kicking off with a chat to Hamish Gow about, the brainchild behind why they've created this challenge, and then alongside partnership with Ballance, Agri. And then we're going to talk to each of the last year's students about their projects, what actually drove them to do it, and where they are looking to go forward to in the future. So I'm always one who likes to encourage entrepreneurship and the curiosity within the brain and looking at ways in things in a different way. So this has been a great way to see what the next generation is thinking about how to improve farming and solve some of our current issues. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Hamish, can you please introduce yourself and share a bit more about your background?
I'm the Sir Graham Harrison Professorial Chair in Global Agricultural Trade and Value Chains at Lincoln University. It's a long title. Effectively, what I do is agribusiness innovation. That's my passion, been my passion for 30-something years. Started at Lincoln as an undergraduate and then travelled the world building value chains, linking farms to markets.
That's awesome. Yeah, you sent me a long list yesterday of all the things you've done in your life, and I think that's another whole podcast in itself, which I'm looking forward to getting done. But how did you come around to create this innovation challenge, and what was the main purpose behind that?
I suppose there's a couple of different reasons. Firstly is I took over the primary industry systems class, which is our first semester, first year course for all of our agriculturally focused students from BCom Ag, BAg, BAg Sci, rural valuation, and some of the other agriculturally focused BSc degrees. And so it's this integrated course. It's been around for a long time, helping all of those students get an understanding of the main agricultural production systems and the value chains behind that and how we create economic value into markets. And I got handed that last year on short notice, which is fantastic because suddenly you get 200 last year's students, this year 275 students coming in who want to learn about agriculture and they're all excited. But what we used to do is do it very old school, where you come in and we teach you all the key pieces behind this and we build you up from these little bits. And then suddenly, voila, at the end of it, you go, this is how everything fits together. And I was going like, these kids are coming to Lincoln because they're excited. They want to be driven. They want to go and do new things. They want to go and change the world. Let's just help them on their way right from the start, right? Let's not wait until the end where they suddenly do a capstone project. Let's do the project in the first semester and really excite them and go, how do we catalyze them, ignite them, and then put Jetta rockets on them and fire them higher and faster in the direction of travel where they want to go. So that's basically the idea. Was we had a research project where they do this research essay and I said, no, let's just cut that and we'll flip that on its head and we'll create this innovation project and get them really thinking deeply about a farmer's problem that they're excited about and then working to create a solution for it. And man, did we have some success last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what a way to start off like your first beginning of insight into university as well. It's not just straight lectures. It's like, how can we foster that energy and excitement about, learning about agriculture and where to go forward? Absolutely.
Because I think one of the real benefits out of it is it gave each of the students, it challenged them to find a purpose at Lincoln. And why were you here, right? What got you really excited? What was the thing that really ignites your fire in your belly so that you can then work that out really quickly at the start and take it from a farmer's perspective and go, how can I go and solve this and explore that? Because if you have that underlying purpose, that'll help you drive and work out what courses I need to do and define you as you go through Lincoln. Otherwise, what happens is you sort of turn up and there's this degree and you've got to take the classes that you're told to take. But there's all this flexibility and the students always go, what should I go and do? What other things should I go and do as I'm going through? But having this suddenly gives them purpose and sort of sets that North Star for them. And you can see the ones who really leaned in suddenly had that North Star and it's driven them for what they've done not only in the first semester, but also what they did in the second semester. And now it's driven their purpose for their second year and their third year. And do they want to go on exchange overseas? If they're going to go on exchange, where's the right place? I'm really interested in this, so I'm going to go here. And that suddenly just drives this whole different perspective of what's their role and where they go. So Lincoln's the stepping stone, but they're already thinking beyond Lincoln and into that future and going, where do we go? How do we go forward? What do we need? Who do I need to talk to? Other thing which is really cool is it makes sure that they connect themselves into industry. Because once you've got it, the way the project was designed, you had to go and find a farmer's problem. So you had to go and talk to farmers. You had to go and talk to industry. You had to understand what the problem was. You needed to go and research it. You needed to find all these things. But it was all driven by themselves. It wasn't driven by some artificial report that you had to go and do research on. This was driven by your own drive and energy and what you were passionate about.
Absolutely. I wish something like this I had in my first semester at uni. I fluffed around a bit, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do till I was probably later on and didn't put my energy towards it. But I love that you're incorporating that they have to go and talk to industry and farmers as well, because it really gives a better scope over what the problem they're trying to solve. And like you say, it just drives them forward to actually, I want to solve this long term as well.
Absolutely, right. And I think that the other good thing is partnering up with Ballance and bringing Ballance in, and we're looking for other partners as well, suddenly brought a reality to it and also brought them access. If they wanted to go and talk to someone, they could pick up the phone and talk to someone on the Ballance innovation team and go, oh, I've got this issue. I need to go and find a farmer who looks like this, smells like this, and I'm in this area of New Zealand. Can you help me out? And they'd just put them onto one of the sales team who would know a farmer up there that they could then go and talk to, or you can talk to someone in industry. So suddenly we had this really cool symbiotic relationship between industry and Lincoln working together to really help ignite these young students coming through. And the Ballance team leaned in as well, right? From all the way from the field agents all the way to the top of Ballance, trying to sit there and go like, wow, what can we go and do? How can we go and ignite these students and get them going forward? And it was quite a short period of time for the project. It was only sort of 4 weeks we gave them to work through it, but it was short enough and enough to get them going. So it wasn't feeling as if you're overwhelmed by it. But, wow, we'll get some fantastic outcomes out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some fantastic projects that have come through it. And it's awesome that Ballance have leaned into that as well. So it sounds like a great opportunity for other industry partners to come along and help support that next generation as well.
Absolutely. We're looking for as many partners as we can. Ballance just sort of sat there and said, well, let's crank into it. And it was done. The project got put together really quickly because the course was just starting and we needed to catalyze it and just get on and make it happen. So otherwise it was going to be 12 months later. So we just went, let's just do this. Let's put a proof of concept in there, crank along, and away we go. It was great.
Yeah,
it's how innovation
awesome.
should happen.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's kind of like the real world, like, get on and get it done.
Yep.
What is the, so far, this is the second year, what has the Innovation Challenge so far taught you about how this next generation are thinking about agriculture?
They're already coming in with a purpose. So they're leaning into Lincoln and but I think we probably were doing that previously as well. It just isn't as obvious. But the students certainly have this way more worldly understanding of what the world is and where they want to fit into it. They may not necessarily understand exactly how they can make a difference, but they're here because there's something burning inside them. And they want to be supported to be able to unpack that and work that through. And so it's not just coming here to go and do classes and I'm going to do it later. When they get an opportunity, I'm going to go and do a master's and then a PhD afterwards, and then I'm going to go and do innovation, etc., which was how it was sort of shown to me when I turned up. Now they're turning up and ready to go. And they can see that happening already. Because there's other young people doing really amazing things. And so what they're looking for is, how do we provide some guardrails and a leg up so that they can get an advanced jump on it and send them on that high trajectory? And so that's the big challenge for Lincoln, is to sit there and think about what do we wrap around this to really give them that lift and get them going, and then keep on helping and supporting them as they get along that process. And so we're having to run as fast as the students are just to keep up with them. But that's good.
Yeah, it is great. And I guess it's just so awesome that the university is trying to foster that, innovation and that entrepreneurship within these students and help them grow along the way and support them, because as you say, it'll help the university grow too.
Yeah, so I think it's really important because we've created the traditional way to do innovation. We create this minor and major where people can come and do that, and I'm going to be an innovator. But most of the people who become really good innovators don't want to be an innovator. What they've got is they've got a problem that needs to be solved, or they've seen something but they haven't really thought about it or been given the opportunity or thought they can be the ones who can solve it. And so what's been really interesting is the way that we've got it structured into this first semester course means that everyone has to do it. So all of the students have to lean into it, even the ones who didn't think they were really innovative and couldn't really come up with an idea. Some of them have come up with the best ideas. And we've got one of the young women who went through the program last year. She's already got her idea patented. And that's just phenomenal because she didn't even want to present her idea at the final. I had to coax her across the line to get her to do, this is awesome, this is great. No, I'm not sure about this. And then suddenly she does. And then suddenly 6 months later, it's patented, right? And she's 18, 19 years of age, straight out of university, has not even a year out of high school, and she's already got a patent to her name. And that's what we should be encouraging. And so it's actually making innovation just part of the DNA of Lincoln and making it part of the DNA from all of our undergraduate students. So everyone, when they come out of here, can think in an innovative way. They think in a farmer-centric way and go, okay, how do we solve these problems? How they learn those basic competencies, which are going to become a critical requirement of every graduate. Whether you become an entrepreneur and start your own business or not, you need to have this way of thinking. And so we've got to build those sensibilities and capabilities into our students. And so don't leave it to the end, do it at the start. And then we've got this ability to use the 3 or 4 years they're at Lincoln to actually nurture them and support them as they go on that journey, which is good for everything. Everyone, industry, Lincoln, students, future employers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really building that confidence in themselves as well. And I guess you're fostering that classic Kiwi number 8 wide mentality, like let's solve the issues for a problem. Doesn't matter if we have to create it ourselves, but whoever we're working for or whatever we're doing in our space going forward.
Absolutely. So I think they come in with that basic way of doing things. And then what we do is just put nudge bars around it. We put a bit of a process around it, some structure around it, so that they can do it faster and easier than what it would be if you went outside. And then recognize that there's support here to take you on that journey and apply it across everyone. Because most of the people don't realize they could do this. And so therefore you suddenly give them an opportunity where you force their hand. And then suddenly they surprise themselves, it's just wonderful to watch as these innovators and entrepreneurs emerge who never thought they were going to. Some of those students think they're going to be that, but most of them have no idea.
That must be quite a satisfying process to go through for yourself, seeing that growth in the students.
Absolutely. And that's why you sit there. That's why you come there and you go, okay, start the semester with this many hundreds of students, and you go, okay, how many can we ignite? Because once they get ignited, they're off and running, right? And they may not be the entrepreneur who comes up with them, but they've learned the process, and then they can go and look and so then say, how can I go and support it in the future going forward? And so they all find their own pathways and lift through this in different ways, which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had any projects that have really surprised you so far in the challenge?
Well, one is Bella with her project, where she got a patent for it and she was driven, but she was sort of apprehensive about the whole thing because she not off a farm. She was from the city. Family weren't farmers, but she found this really cool she found the problem, and then she created technology for it, innovative technology for it as an undergraduate, and then voila, it's patentable. And then the same thing as we had 2 or 3 boys off farms who came up with really, really cool practical solutions for farmers and building cool technology and ideas and concepts to solve very, very specific farmer problems. And so both of those ideas were really good. And then other ones have been thinking about how do we go and create whole markets to move and sell product. Other ones have been thinking about how do we create policy and other ways to be able to go and solve some of these problems. So it all went back to what was the farmer's problem, and then working out, do you use a science type innovation like what Ballance did, or is it creating a new market mechanism, or is it creating different policy to be able to go and solve? So they can do innovation in so many different ways to be able to go and think about how to solve the specific problem that these farmers have.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing about this podcast is you kind of get you get all three of them who've got different backgrounds and different projects, like they come up with different innovations, and it's quite awesome to see how they think. It's quite exciting seeing that next generation and how their brains are thinking and what problems they're trying to solve, whether it's current issues or ones that they see that are going to be in the future too.
Yeah. So the goal for us is not to get in their way. So our goal is to actually sit there and say, like, how do we nurture you and accelerate you through this process and make sure you can capture what the right material is to be able to go out of here and really rock it, as opposed to beat you up on the way through and go, I'm going to create you to look like me. That's terrible, right? What we want to do is have everyone come out as their own individual and accelerate them on their own journey and pathway. And that's a mindset change, because traditionally universities have all been about, we want to create everyone who's plain vanilla person within this way of looking at the world. In actual fact, now we've got to flip them on the head and go, actually, how do we create customized pathways that really help students reach their full potential on their way through? And that may be part of that, and make sure you've got the key components on whatever your discipline is. But then the rest of it is to actually work out what else can we add to that and really accelerate and build that whole person, not just sitting there and say, like, here's a certificate and you've got these basic competencies in this area. And AI and Google and those things are going to destroy that anyway. So we've really got to get behind this to get people thinking differently and engaging with them to really get that lift out of each individual, because it's about their own growth and their own pathway and really accelerating that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Are you seeing a bit of a ripple effect now through the university and kind of that thinking starting to spread to some of the other papers and lecturers as well?
Probably too early as an impact from our paper. But there's certainly a spillover in the way that we're looking at innovation within the farm management and also across all of the agricultural sciences space as a result of the discussion and engagement, etc. We've got this ripple effect that's occurring across those as we rethink all of our ag science, BAg and BAg Com degrees at Lincoln, and really trying to make them way more industry engaged and ensure that we've got the competencies that everyone has to have for the future.
That's awesome. So you've been involved in, ag innovation globally for 35 years, most of your career. How has that experience shaped, I guess, this challenge? Has that been one of your driving forces to give those opportunities earlier?
Yeah, so when I was at University of Illinois, which was my first academic role, we used to have innovation at the end of people's degrees. And I suddenly realized as I was going through, and I ran a range of innovation programs there, that I'd always grab some of these students earlier, and that industry was trying to get access to them earlier, as opposed to trying to capture them at the end. They go into these big fights, and so they say, well, can we work with these students earlier? And the earlier we started reaching back into them, the better success we both had in lifting these cohorts. And so that just got me recognizing that we just got to keep on moving earlier and earlier and go, actual fact, how do we start with them right from the start and get them coming along those pathways, and then build logical pathways for innovation to occur, whether it's in new technology or new market value chains or new policy, whatever it is, that we can create these pathways for them to go through, and they can self-define it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, is that self-definition. But do you think here in New Zealand we need to see a bit more of that? Obviously Ballance is supporting this, but the rest of the industry could be tapping in a little bit earlier to support these students coming through?
Oh, absolutely. I think we can have industry leaning in a lot earlier. I think industry's starting to recognise that, to think about how do you lean in, how do you develop the talent, and how do we get industry to collectively invest in the whole pool. One of the interesting ones we had when I was at University of Illinois, we used to give away a whole lot of scholarships to students. But what I noticed when I was there was the scholarships all went to one or two students who would they'd hoover them all up, right? And so they'd walk out and make heaps of money. And then no one else got access to any of those resources or opportunity. So I got the industry players to think like investment bankers. And so investment bankers used to always think they could choose winners, but then they realized that actual fact, what you want to do is play the numbers. And so it's a large number play. So you want to spread your investment over a whole lot of small investments and then see how they stage them and see which ones are successful out of that. And so we got the corporates to change their investment strategy from just investing in scholarships on 1 or 2 students to suddenly say, well, let's spread this over a whole pool and let's collectively invest that over an even larger pool because you're all fighting for the same good students. Let's spread that out and then lift the whole sea. And once you start doing that, you have way larger impact because you've spread it. You've got this lift across all of them, and then they all step up and they all lean in. And then suddenly you get a group of them leaning in. They then pull their peers in, and suddenly you have this whole momentum change. And I think that's how you create a whole movement of change within it, is being able to catalyze this large, broad group by just helping them all take one step to the left, and then they take a couple of steps, and then they pull their friends along with them. And then we've got this whole movement of change. And that just carries on through. Because once you ignite a student in their first year, they'll carry on being on fire the rest of the time, as long as you then give them support. And so then the challenge for us is to sit there and say, like, how do we keep on supporting them as they go on this journey? And that we being Lincoln and industry.
Yeah, exactly. And then you create that kind of compounding effect that just keeps going and growing over time.
Yep.
Which is just awesome, would be awesome to see. So if we were to look at, over the next 10 years in terms of ag, where do you see like one space that's really ripe for innovation, or do you think the most innovation will happen in?
It's going to be sort of innovation, right? So there's going to be a whole lot of technology which is going to change. And so you're going to get AI and these sorts of things which are going to have this impact on it, and people are going to adopt it, and that will change. So there'll be I think delivery is going to change, the way that we deliver information to people. So AI's been around I did my master's in artificial intelligence 30-something years ago, right, and created one of the first AI solutions. But I think there's going to be this real move from a product focus to a solution focus. But to do a solution focus, there has to be this really amazing insight into understanding farmers and defining their problems. So there's going to be a big push into design thinking and those types of customer experience skills and design-led innovation, and really understanding what those underlying problems are and then creating solutions for that. So I think we're going to see a massive flip from what I'd see as a supply side push of stuff to very much a demand side engagement and creating solutions that are very customized to those individual. And the technology that's developing rapidly around that will make it very, very easy for people to go and rapidly execute on that space. So you're not going to see the large, where you needed to build this whole big team of people to go and build, you need special programmers who've got these skill sets, etc. AI is going to put all of the skills and the power of the person who goes and understands the problem, and then they can rapidly prototype outcomes and outputs that they can then go and test and share with farmers, and they can rapidly get adoption and traction if it's good, and then you move forward. And so we have to move our whole talent base to live in that world, because that's the world that we're going to suddenly see this massive change occur in that space. And so it's on the university to help people get all the first principle science that they need, but then think like systems and then have this competency to be able to go and play like that. And I think that's going to be the big mindset change, is activating all of these young students so that they've got that competency. It's going to be really, really hard for all their bosses to make sense of it, because it's going to go counter to the supply command and control structure that we've had in the past, which is all supply side driven. So now we've got to go to this very open innovation, demand driven. It's all about the farmer, what their specific problems are. How do we go and rapidly prototype it, run experiments, put it in front of them and get going? Because the technology is going to become so simple and cheap and easy to use. It's going to be the people who know how to go and use that are going to be the real big power players as we move forward. And they will come and disrupt a whole lot of the traditional channels that we have out there. And so it's going to be look out for when this comes. So the people who actually sit there and think about what are those farmers' problems, how do we go and solve that, they're going to be the ones who are going to come in and create whole new different ways of doing business that we've never seen before. And so it's not that AI, yes, AI is important, but AI is only important because suddenly it frees up those individuals to go and find the problem and go and solve it and deliver a prototype and experiment really quickly. So we're sitting there and saying, like, what used to take, you need a specific program, it may take them a year to go and build, and they didn't really understand it, so they wouldn't get it right. Now, anybody can go and jump on with AI tools and code and not even know how to code or write it. Just here it is, put it out there, test it with a farmer, see what comes back and adjust. It's all about execution and rapid prototyping. That's going to go boom, right? You look at how that changes things, massive. And then as a result of that will be the speed of adoption and the way we need to think about how we change the way we engage. So there's not going to be this sort of traditional bell curve. It's going to flip on its head. And there'll be a heap of innovation trying to work out how we make things way cheaper for doing what we already know. And then there'll be a heap of innovation going on, thinking about how do I add value to things in a very customized way for these very specific groups who've got specific questions that we'll go and answer for them. We'll charge them for it, but that charge will also come down as well because we'll find out ones where there's lots of them who are no longer geographically in the same space. We can now think about them as long tails that we connect together, right? So there'll be these individuals anywhere in the world that we've now got this ability to be able to pull them together and create a market to go and solve that specific problem, which wasn't in an old traditional bricks and mortar sense. They weren't accessible, but now they'll be accessible. And the economics of technology will mean that it's now economically viable for us to be able to go and create solutions for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's such an exciting time that's coming ahead. And what you're doing with the Lincoln University, and particularly these students, is really setting them up for it. And I'm looking forward to sharing a couple of these projects now with them. But thank you very much for your time today, Hamish. It's been a fascinating chat. I could go way deeper into this with you, but yeah, I've been really enjoying it.
My pleasure.
I'm excited to share that this podcast is brought to you by GroundShift. GroundShift is a whole farm advisory business built to help farmers make better decisions for their soil, their system, their bottom line, and their long-term goals. They partner with farmers to build high-performing, biologically led systems that deliver consistent profitability, greater health, and long-term resilience. At the heart of what GroundShift does is to take a system-wide approach to your farm system. They look at soil, pasture performance, animal performance, finances, and management, and that gives you the clarity on where your real opportunities are. Right now, GroundShift have opened up a limited number of spots in their pilot program. This is the chance to work hands-on with the GroundShift team to put strategy into action and start shifting your farm towards greater resilience and profitability. If you're curious about a more integrated, biologically grounded approach to farm performance, this is the place to start. So head to www.groundshift.ag or follow groundshift.ag on Instagram. So first up, I have Bella Thompson, and Bella has done a project on hybrid methane reducing feed additive for New Zealand dairy cows. How are you today, Bella?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Can you give us a bit of a background on who you are and what you're studying at Lincoln at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Bella. I'm currently going into my second year studying a Bachelor of Agriculture Science, majoring in Supply Chain Management at Lincoln University. I've always had a huge passion for agriculture and a strong interest in innovation and sustainability. So yeah, it's been really cool to kind of get to apply that at uni and stuff.
Awesome. So you're in your second year now, or heading into your second year. What really is your background or interest in agriculture?
So I didn't grow up on a farm. I'm originally from Auckland, but I moved down to Lincoln back in 2018. And that's where I kind of got the spark of interest for agriculture. I went to a small country primary school and I ended up having my first pet lamb for a school project day, and that's just what really kicked it off. I carried ag throughout high school and was really lucky to have an incredible agriculture teacher, Mr. Spark, and he was super passionate about the subject, and that made all the difference. And that's what ultimately led me to study it at Lincoln University.
Awesome. So what is the inspiration around your project?
So the project was originally inspired by some research I did in my final year of high school into a red seaweed called Asparagopsis. It was shown in Australia to significantly reduce methane emissions in cattle. So that's kind of where the initial idea came from. However, when I looked at it back in my Management 103 class, a few months later, I found out that there was trials already happening down south. So kind of went back to the drawing board and started looking at what could work alongside Asparagopsis. So that's when I discovered 3-nitrooxypropanol, or 3-NOP, or the commercial name's Bovier. But the more I researched both compounds, the more it kind of made sense, because they target different stages of methane production in the rumen, which is kind of how the idea came about of combining them together.
Nice. I guess, how does it work? Or walk us through the idea a bit further in terms of why you chose these two products and why to combine them.
Yeah, sure. So my concept is like a hybrid methane reducing feed additive, which I described as like a smart blend of Asparagopsis seaweed, which is a natural methane inhibitor, and 3-NOP, which is a synthetic methane inhibitor. Because they work at different biological stages in the rumen, combining them at a lower dose could deliver a stronger methane reduction while eliminating any risks like toxicity or rumen disruption. So the idea is that you can kind of get maximum impact but with minimal disruption. So it's kind of science-based but farmer-friendly.
Yeah. No, nice. And how do you see dairy farmers like practically incorporating this into their systems here in New Zealand?
Yeah, so practicality was definitely a huge focus for this project. So it took a lot of brainstorming to figure out how you could actually create that as a product that would be able to be used on farms. So in the end, I was talking with some professors at Lincoln Uni, and we kind of came up with that it could be delivered either as a powder or a pellet. So you could integrate it into in-shed farming systems or potentially as a slow-release bolus. So it could be used seasonally during lactation or tailored by breed. But the goal is that it fits into existing pasture-based systems rather than asking farmers to completely change the way that they farm.
Nice. And a lot of farmers do have now in-shed feeding, particularly here in Canterbury. So it does make it easier to use these feed additives. I guess the one concern I have is around Bovier and like some of the press it's getting overseas. Do you see that as a concern for here as New Zealand dairy farming? Because we mainly seen as grass-based, even though we do quite a bit of in-shed feeding.
Yeah, there's been a couple things that have come up since I kind of did this research project. So there's a couple hurdles that we kind of have to look at and see if there's another way that we could kind of look at it. But yeah, we're kind of still in the thinking process of that to try and figure out how it could be effective.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of the seaweed side of things, do we grow that seaweed here in New Zealand?
Yeah, so we grow it down in Bluff, as far as I'm aware. I'm not sure if that would be something that you could grow like over in Littleton, so that's closer to where I'm based. But yeah, it's hard because there's a lot of rules and regulations around growing seaweed and stuff, and then harvesting it commercially. So it'll kind of be a bit of a thing that you'd have to sort out. But
Yeah. I think there's a company down in Bluff that are working on this who I think did those trials over in Australia originally, and seeing some good results. But yeah, I guess the hard thing is how much seaweed can you actually take from the ocean before you have a negative effect from a sustainability point of view. So I guess when we're looking at it for the real world impact, you've got an interest in agriculture and sustainability. How do you see this feed additive or this concept that you've brought to the challenge having an impact in the real world?
Yeah, so I believe that if this is successful, this innovation could be like a real game changer for reducing methane emissions here in New Zealand, specifically in the dairy sector. Yeah, if you look at New Zealand's emissions, majority of that is agriculture emissions, and that comes from dairy. So from my calculations, this product could reduce methane emissions around 40 to 60% per cow. So when you scale that nationally across how many cows we have, that would be a huge number. So it could also help meet the 2030 methane reduction targets without requiring major land use change, which that would also have kind of like a ripple effect, because that would strengthen our country's reputation for a producer of like low emissions, high quality dairy products.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So is there any indications, I guess, from using these products individually on how much they reduce the methane output of a cow?
Based on my research, so individually 3-NOP reduces methane by 30% on average, while Asparagopsis has shown to reduce methane by up to 80%. So by combining both of them at like lower doses, this could maintain or increase the methane reduction rates.
So obviously this challenge is quite a cool thing to be able to do at university.
Yes.
And I mean, it's something that I probably wouldn't have had the guts to have a crack at when I was at university myself. So what has been kind of the biggest learning about going through the whole process of the innovation challenge?
I've had a couple of learnings. Probably my biggest one was it isn't just about science. Like you can't have a good idea and just think about the science side of things. You've got to think about the feasibility, the cost, if farmers are actually going to adopt that product or strategy. And then, yeah, you can have the best technology in the world, but if farmers can't realistically use it, then it's not really going to work. I also learned that some farmers are more traditional and they're not always immediately on board with picking up something that's sustainable and more future farming focused. So that was kind of a bit tricky to like shift that mindset and kind of respect that. But on a personal level, I think I just learned the importance of giving things a go. If it wasn't for my lecturer, Hamish, taking the Management 103 course and like really encouraging me to put my foot forwards, I wouldn't have been involved in this challenge. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that push because that led to me securing a patent for this idea and then becoming a Ballance finalist and getting to visit the Ballance headquarters up in Tauranga.
Awesome. And how was that experience? 'Cause
It
it's,
was so cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Has this, I guess, process, obviously you've gone through and done the patenting, which is quite cool and it would have been quite exciting as well. Has this lit a bit of an entrepreneurial fire in yourself?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So I guess looking forward, like where do you see yourself, working in the egg industry in the future?
I get asked this question all the time.
Yeah,
I'm pretty open-minded about where I'll end up, but I'd love to work in a space that helps farms transition to more sustainable systems. We've got lots of industrial and housing development happening, so we're losing a lot of good farmland. So that causes the farming to be more intensive. So I would really like to see if we can come up with solutions for farmers to balance productivity, profitability, and sustainability. Because, yeah, we're seeing more intensive farming on less ground happening, but all those inputs have causes to our land, and yeah.
awesome. That's speaking my language. So do you have any preference? Like, would you like to go into like the research and development side as that side of it, or would you like to work more directly with farmers, like on a one-to-one basis?
Preferably more with farmers and on that one-to-one basis. So yeah, maybe consultation work, or I think I'm a bit of a people person. So yeah, I definitely like to go out and meet farmers, talk about farming and yeah, all that sort.
Awesome. Well, yeah, agriculture is definitely a people business. You can't separate that out of there. So it looks like you've got a bright future ahead. And thank you very much for hopping on today and talking to us about your project. It's definitely got some benefits there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do going forward.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been an awesome opportunity.
Next up, we've got Sam Cranston, who did his report on the issues and opportunities associated with the beef on dairy in New Zealand. G'day, Sam. How are you today?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Can you give us a bit of background on who you are and what you're studying at Lincoln at the moment?
Yes, it is. So I'm coming from a family farm, sheep and beef farm, up in the Manawatu Wanganui area. So sheep and beef, and we've got a Hereford stud breed schools for the dairy industry. So for heifer mating, the dairy industry particularly. So focusing on low birth weight and and all that, and that's sort of what's got me interested in the whole beef on dairy side of things from a young age. Been quite invested in the stud and loved all of that. Loved growing up on the farm here, hunting and getting outdoors and all that. Got a team of dogs and live and breathe it. And so studying at Lincoln this year, doing a Bachelor of Ag Science. Just finished my first year, so 3 more to go, and hoping to get into the genetic side of it a bit more and the breeding, which is what I'm really interested in.
That's awesome. I can see where your background is and why you probably picked your topic now. So what is it that really inspired you to go and look into this project here?
Yeah, as I sort of said, it's very much come from the Hereford and growing up with an interest in that, and where those bulls actually end up and where they add value to the industry. And just from conversations with clients or just dairy farmers in general about, well, initially it was the bobby calves, and I suppose the surplus calves now that they're entering a value chain somewhere else, but where they're actually ending up and whether there's more value to be created. I think there's still a bit of stigma around the beef sort of things in the dairy industry. And so I suppose my interest has been around breaking down some of those areas or defining the issues a bit better and working out where we can improve. Yeah, quite thinking about that.
That's awesome. So I guess with that in mind, what did you find through your research on the topic around dairy beef? And I guess there's some difficulties around it that we've already talked about, but what were your main takeaways from looking into this?
So a lot of it came down to the calf breeder, really. There's a whole supply chain right through from the bull breeder to the consumer, to the steak or the mince at the end of the supply chain. And so right through looking, what's a dairy farmer want? What are some of the issues they're facing? What's a calf breeder want? What are their issues? Meatworks, finishes, all of that right through to the consumer. And actually looking at where the focus has been in the past and potentially where it might want to be instead. So I think a lot of the issues that I've picked up, well, from my point of view anyway, has come down to rearer profitability and reliability of the animals and the profitability of their system. Part of it too is the numbers. So obviously there's 3 million surplus calves there or thereabouts in the dairy industry every year in New Zealand, and currently only about 1 million of those are reared for beef purposes. The rest are entering a value chain somewhere else. But to actually finish those as beef animals at the moment isn't very practical. We can't live export anymore, and there's really probably quite limited outlets for these animals, and especially with more dairy conversions going in around the place, often on beef finishing country, the areas we can finish beef on is they're shrinking. So trying to find an outlet for these animals appears to be quite an issue.
Yeah, and it's quite a topical issue at the moment, and I presume, as more as the dairy industry gets more pressure to do something with the bobby calves, it's only going to increase. So do you think it's more of or what did you find, is it more of a system issue rather than actually finding a home for them, or is there quite a lot of parts to it?
I think there's a lot of parts to it. Yeah, I suppose we can't just start with, we've got 3 million animals, we've got to find a place to put them. It's got to start with making money. You're not going to get any farmer to change their system to accommodate dairy beef, or beef on dairy animals, I should say, if they're going to be more profitable running sheep or running straight beef animals or cropping or something else. So it's got to start with making money for those, and then from there, if it's profitable, people will start to make changes. Yeah, and I suppose for me, that looks like rearing the best animals. Of those 3 million animals, there's got to be 1 million of the best animals for beef. And that's where my interest in the genetics side comes in. It's all in breeding the right animals for the job and being able to select the right animals to rear, the best animals to rear. You're not stuck with something that doesn't want to grow or is going to create problems later on down the supply chain.
Absolutely. And leaning on that background in genetics or that passion for it, what are you seeing, or did some ideal traits come through from your research?
Yeah. So starting with the dairy industry, the dairy farmer's main job is to get a cow and milk and provide the milk. So I suppose for them, ease of calving is a big focus. They're not going to want to be out there pulling calves left, right, and centre because they're too big. So there's an inverse relationship, I suppose, with high growth rate and easy calving, which your beef breeds typically have. Which is slowly getting broken down with selective breeding. But yeah, that's definitely part of it, is the birth weight and calving ease. Then also there's more days in milk. The more days in milk, the better for a dairy farmer. So short gestation is also important. And I suppose getting to the calf rearer side of things, they're going to want a calf that's born early in the season so they have more days of growing. And yeah, so again, the short gestation plays in a bit there. But also they need something that grows. And that growth, basically from the day it's born on the dairy farm, for every other stakeholder of the supply chain, the main thing they're worried about is this animal going to grow right through to a finisher? And potentially, it depends on where the end use of that animal is going to be. If it's going into grinding beef or mince, potentially it doesn't have to be such a focus on on the quality side of the meat. It's more of a quantity and efficiency of growing that animal. But if it was to enter a premium market with, high cut prime beef, then you'd start looking at IMF, so marbling in the meat and other quality traits as well.
Awesome. Do you think there's an opportunity to supply both those markets with beef on dairy?
I think there definitely is an opportunity to supply both the markets, but you'd have to differentiate the way you manage the animals, especially with the marbling, which is, well, from my point of view anyway, it seems to be what people are looking at for a measure of quality. And for a good marbling, they've got to have the genetic potential to marble to start with, but also it's in the early days of an animal's life that those marbling cells actually appear. So if an animal's going to be finished for a high quality market, those first couple of months are really important. Getting the diets particularly right, potentially additional supplements might be needed. It's one thing feedlot beef potentially does really well, and they can feed the supplements to this good marbling, big cells, or big amounts of marbling cells. Grass-fed potentially doesn't lend itself towards. So, yeah, definitely potential to do that. We have the genetics to do it, I think, but we just need to manage them properly to get to that premium end. And you need to be rewarded for it too. If people are putting all this extra work in, then there's got to be an incentive at the end of it.
Absolutely. So if you were to remove, I guess, one constraint from, beef on dairy, what would that be to make things flow a bit easier?
I suppose it's lack of data around the calves. And as I say, in terms of picking the right calves to go into this beef supply chain, the calf bearers that don't have a relationship with a dairy farmer and don't know what they're getting, they don't know what bulls have been used. They might know the breed. One thing with the Herefords is, they throw a marker, the white face, and it's a Hereford Friesian, but you don't know whether it's a Hereford Friesian that's leaning more towards a beefy, growthy animal, or it could be something that doesn't have a lot of growth potential. I think breed's getting less and less important nowadays, and it's more about the breeding of the animal. So within a breed, there's a lot of variation, and I suppose knowing what your animal actually is, what its potential actually is probably one of the major constraints that I'd like to see removed. And that could just mean having more genetic information on that calf.
Absolutely, that would definitely help with the decision-making process, or driving some of the decision-making out there. So this is a pretty cool opportunity to be doing while you're at university, this innovation challenge. What have you found has been your biggest learning through the process?
So there's been lots of learnings, but I suppose the biggest one has really been how to present an idea properly. On lots of ideas from heaps of different people, but it all sort of has come down to how they're presented. So heaps of good ideas, but to get them across properly, probably the hardest thing to do. And I suppose that also comes back to the value of people as well, knowing the right people who can help you through all that. And I've been bloody lucky that, right through this development process, I've had some great people help me out along the way. Plenty of people happy to have conversations and give up their time to talk about it and give me tips, and other people as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a really valuable connections to be making when you're heading out, and you're clearly passionate about and know what you're talking about. So it's obviously something that you want to help solve. So I think we can figure out where you want to head in the industry, but what do you see yourself, 5-10 years down the track in the ag industry? Where do you see your future?
So 5-10 years down the track, I'll probably be on farm. I've had a little bit of interest in other rural professions as well, but really I think where I want to be, where I'm happy is outside and on farm with the animals and all that. So I'd love to be in a role where helping make breeding decisions and looking at genetics. So stud breeding's probably what I'm passionate about, whether that's sheep or cattle, or potentially even on the dairy side of things. Lots of genetics going on there in terms of their breeding of their herds and all that. So something like that would be great, I think.
That's awesome. Well, you've definitely got the passion, and I think it sounds like you got the knowledge too. So anyone would be lucky to have you as part of their business, and whether that's the family business as well, it'd be pretty cool to see you go forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you do in the genetic space. It's great to see someone coming up with so much passion and obviously knowledge to try and help solve an issue in New Zealand. So thank you very much for your time today, Sam. It's been really great having you on with you.
That's great. Yeah, thanks, Garnet.
So up next, I've got James Clark. His report or his project was on using mycorrhizal fungi as a form of biological control. So this is one that's quite of interest to myself, and I think it's quite innovative. So James, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good, Conan. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Can you give the listeners a bit of a background on who you are and what you're studying at Lincoln at the moment?
I'm James. I grew up on a crop farm around the Mayfield area in Canterbury. I went to school around in Methven, and I'm currently at Lincoln University doing a Bachelor of Agriculture Science. And yeah, last year for one of our courses, we did this project where we could come up with pitches for ideas that we thought, for innovations that we thought we saw in the agriculture sector in New Zealand. And I came up with this pitch on how we could use mycorrhizal fungi for different uses as more of a biological control agent rather than just, in more niche not niche crops, but in crops that it doesn't normally colonize. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I guess being from a crop farm here in central Canterbury, that probably inspired you to look into this area?
Yeah, I've always been interested in how to do things better, especially in a crop farm way, because there's always better ways of doing stuff. And I learned about this type of fungi in actually one of my lectures, and I thought we'd already been talked to about this pitch idea and I thought actually that's an idea that I can go and that might have legs that I can take it to use it in this pitch. So yeah, I thought the idea had a bit of legs that if you took it from what it normally exists as to a different sector, that maybe it could have quite substantial effects on reducing the inputs that farmers use and increasing productivity and reducing the biological negative impact.
No, it's definitely a very interesting topic, and probably something that a lot of farmers aren't familiar as what mycorrhizal fungi is and what it does. So, can you give a bit of a high level view of what it is?
Yeah, no, I had absolutely no idea before university, so it's definitely been quite interesting. It's mycorrhizal fungi there's two different types, but basically it's a type of fungi that forms a symbiotic relationship with plant roots, which is a relationship where both parties work together for a net benefit between both of them. And what happens is they penetrate into the plant roots, and then the plant will give the fungi glucose or energy that it produces from the sun. And the fungi has a better ability to extract nutrients such as phosphorus from the soil, and then they exchange the glucose and the nutrients between each other. So the fungi has, as it can't photosynthesize, gets a way to get glucose, and the plant has more nutrients than it would have been able to get by itself.
That's a great explanation, really. I always like to think about it as like even in the simpler terms of like how it just increases that footprint of the roots, so that can go and scavenge more, nutrients or water as required. And it's kind of a communication tool as well between the plant and what's happening in the biology. I guess with your idea, you're talking about, colonizing different crops or plant species. How did you come up with that idea? And is there anyone experimenting with this in the world?
Well, as far as I know, there's no one that I could find in the period of time that I was researching this. And how I came up with it is I saw the effect that it had in its natural environment. I thought, actually, if you took that quality and took it to, say, from what would normally be like an orchard to a cereal-based, like a arable crop scenario, that it could actually have quite significant positive effects to the actual system.
Yeah, absolutely. So is it that in terms of those positive effects, they kind of stack up on top of each other? What would those be in terms of a crop?
Well, the fungi kind of has this quality where the ectomycorrhizae causes this area called, I think it's called a brule. I think it's French. I'm probably butchering it, but it's where it releases organic acids and other compounds into the soil, and it kills off other plants and other competing fungi. And I was thinking that would then, if you transported that quality into some sort of arable crop, then that would mean that you'd have to spend it would kill a lot of the weed species in between the rows and in between each of the plants, and make it so not only does it has that positive impact of increasing the nutrient uptake and communication between the plants, but also reduces the competition that the target species actually has.
Yeah, it's a very thoughtful way to think of trying to solve not just one problem, really. It's not like a silver bullet, I'm just solving one problem and creating another one. You're actually looking at different layers there to solving some very, very real issues with cropping that probably a lot of people don't realize how much is required to go into a crop system. So if you can minimize a lot of those external inputs, and which generally come with a lot of costs, it's probably could be a game changer for the industry.
Oh, definitely. It's a bit of a macabre way of saying it, but I kind of say that even with our farm, which isn't overly big in the grand scheme of things, but we still do apply enough chemical to probably kill a small country. It's actually insane how much we apply, and any savings we can have has a great effect on our profitability and our overall environmental impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess over time, that compounds as well. So you just get some longer term benefits as well in terms of a cropping situation, which is pretty cool. So I guess if you were to, this is something that we develop and it now becomes an important part of a mixed cropping system. Are there any management practices that farmers would have to be aware of or no longer be able to do because it might impact these fungal networks?
Well, that's kind of the problem of it. There's a lot of stuff that I honestly don't understand myself, and it's quite a complicated. All these relationships are quite complicated and interconnected. But that's something that I found recently was that actually applying fertilizer can actually have a negative impact on this. Well, one paper that I found has applying fertilizer have a negative effect on the actual amounts of this relationship that are actually formed, because the plant actually can easily access nitrogen and phosphorus without actually using that fungi. So it actually just doesn't form the relationship at all. So it would require a large shake-up of the system and of how things were done in ways that I am not at all qualified to speak about, honestly. And then also, I'm not sure, but my gut feeling is that cultivation, breaking it up and going from crop to crop probably wouldn't have a great impact on it either. And it would also have to be managed. The soil levels of this fungi would also have to be managed so it didn't accidentally over colonize some plants and actually extract all the life, because it's a symbiotic relationship, but both plants are still trying to take as much as they can. And if they can take too much, then the fungi will actually quite significantly negatively affect its host. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, those are all very good points. And from my understanding, mycorrhizal fungi and a lot of the fertilizer that we apply here in New Zealand, particularly phosphorus, is the reason why we don't see it as prevalent. We do, if you do certain types of biological testing here, you'll see that you have got obviously the fungi there, but it won't be in. It's essentially not being used by the plant because they can get it more easily from a soluble fertilizer, which is inherently bringing in some costs from outside the farm gate. So no, I think you've raised some really good things there, and it is an area that needs a bit more research, I think, in New Zealand and in our context. And how can we start applying things like this or utilising some of these natural systems to make our farm systems more resilient, but also lower cost, which would be with current things going on quite important. So, how have you enjoyed the actual process of going through this innovation challenge yourself?
Well, I'm someone who I kind of like to do with all my assessments that I do. I want to do something that's a bit more unique. So I actually quite enjoyed the opportunity of actually do something creative, but do something new. I quite enjoyed that opportunity, and especially a way to express it, and even just learning more about that sort of stuff and learning stuff that I didn't know before, and especially in new areas like that, I found it really quite interesting. And well, I guess the more I learned, the more I knew I didn't know, and how much actually there was to learn about that sort of stuff and what it could actually be done. And if I did learn about it, what I could actually use to progress stuff that is relevant to me.
No, that's a really good thing to figure out, is how much you don't actually know, particularly in the soil space. It's there's just so much going on there that we don't even realize at a science level that we just haven't figured out yet. So it's an awesome thing to bring some curiosity to. What's been your I guess your biggest learning as part of the challenge?
Well, one thing was just definitely learning how to better sort through a whole lot of scientific journals, but that's slightly that's definitely been a good skill. But also just how much of a interconnected system the soil biota and whole environment is. That's been quite interesting to learn, and how one change affects a whole lot of stuff and has a whole lot of flow-on effects down the chain. It's actually been quite interesting to learn that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So has this inspired you to maybe change any of some of the papers or what you're studying at university? Like, has it inspired a bit of a focus more on soil now, or you are still largely just doing what you're curious with?
I'm not sure. I haven't. My course is only just starting to open up to actually what I can. I'm only just getting that freedom to actually choose my papers. So I still, it's definitely piqued my interest in soils, and I still definitely am going to have a strong soil and plant based, a path through university, especially with the pathways that I'm likely to end up with out after uni. But definitely, yeah, it definitely has steered me in that direction.
I guess what do you see yourself doing going forward, or what would you like to do going forward? Let's think 5-10 years down the track. Where do you think you'll be in the ag industry?
I'm not sure. It's quite a turbulent way. I'm not sure exactly. I'm fortunate enough to have a family farm to come home to, which I'm really grateful about that. But I'm not sure what path it's going to go down in the next 4 or 5 years, and whether the place I come home to is still going to be a mixed cropping sheep and crop farm, or whether we might be a dairy farm, or who knows, something else that comes up in the next 10 years. So I'm just going to try and learn as much as I can, and in the time that I have while I'm young to travel and learn, I'll try go elsewhere, maybe Europe or the Americas, and just try broaden my knowledge and broaden my horizons. But I'm not at the moment. I'm just going by feel, and what feels right, I'll go down and pursue that.
That's cool. I like that. So the end goal is obviously be back farming in some regard.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, it's definitely my passion. I definitely like being able to wake up and go out and work in the farm and work in the land. Yeah, it's definitely my passion.
Yeah. No, I love that. What is it that you love the most about working the land?
I'm a bit ADHD, so I definitely like how it's always different. It's never, one day is never the same, and there's always a big variety stuff. And it's just, I like being out and physical and working hard and being able to see a physical change as well, like being able to see that your actions have a positive impact on something and you're moving forward. So I definitely like seeing that as well.
That's awesome. No, farming is a fantastic pathway if that's how you feel. That's how I used to like that part of it as well myself when I was on the family farm. But thank you very much for your time today, James. I've really enjoyed having a yarn to you about your topic here. I think it's very intriguing and it's right up my alley. But yeah, thanks for taking the time to come on.
No worries. Happy to have an interview. Thank you.
So that's the episode today. We're talking about the Innovation Challenge, and it's great to have a yarn to a few of the next generation of potentially change makers in the agricultural industry, thinking about a few different topics there and problems that they're looking to solve. It's always great to highlight this next generation coming through and encourage a bit of that different way of thinking, and also just tap into Hamish's knowledge as well. So if you really enjoyed this one, I'm going to be doing another episode with Hamish himself and talking about innovation in ag and all of his experience going forward. So thanks for listening.